There is increasing pushback now coming from the from various media firms, YouTube, so social media companies and online companies who are going to be suffering as a result. YouTube are now starting to wade into the mix a little bit more publicly, and now starting to cite examples of Australians, in particular, who have come to fame because they've had access to YouTube and other material from the time they were under the age of 16 and being able to roll forward. And so they're citing, in this case, Troye Sivan, who came to fame in part based on his YouTube content. Some of the other articles that have appeared have had people who are politically active, mainly progressives, who are utilising the social media and stuff, and who did so from before the age of 16. It's like, well, yeah, okay. There's also elements to suggest that, okay, yeah, I mean, they're almost the exceptions to the rule, I guess. But Google's claim here is one of the things that I guess I personally have wondered at and didn't. I mean, I'm sure there's probably stuff written down somewhere, but I'd not seen it. Uh, coming out of listening to the stuff coming out of the E-Safety Commissioner and the government, I don't have the confidence that they've adequately looked at the systems that are already in place for managing access to this sort of material by under 16s already. And that, I guess, what Google's saying here may just be dismissed out of hand because it's either not used or not being used effectively. Now, a lot of these sites have limitations already in place, mainly for under 13s, based on the COPPA, COPPA, I think, US-led legislation and stuff. And so I guess you could see the under 16 ban here as like an extension of that to a slightly older age bracket. But there's a lot of parental controls already in place on streaming services and various content websites as well. And YouTube, for example, if you're creating an account, you basically can set an age bracket on it. And if you've got kids, you can set kids' accounts, family, like set up a family type managed set of accounts, and then the kids' accounts you can set to have varying levels of access to YouTube content, such as limiting them only to YouTube Kids, or placing the age-based restrictions and using the age-based restrictions to hold them in place. And so Google's saying, look, YouTube should be exempted from this coming forward. I can see their point, but I mean, the point that a lot of people were making all along was if parents were more engaged and using the existing systems correctly, or even using the existing systems at all, a lot of these issues would never come to a head because their children would be using them through managed interfaces already. But as we talked about the other day, once you have a motivated group of people with all the time on their hands, they're going to find ways around it. And that's going to be the same when they finally introduce the under 16 bans and the verification services. People are going to find their ways around it. At the same time, people are looking at things like the recent Salesforce breach, which has led to 5.3 million Qantas customers or something like that amount of personal data being released. There's also the Discord breach recently, which has led to the potential release or the actual release of government verified ID data on a range of Discord users. G'day, Ash. Yeah, they've had these age verification services saying no, we're not going to hold this data, or Discord saying, well, we don't hold this data. Yet that seems to be misleading based on the breaches that have just recently happened, or the data that's being released to show that nope, this data was being held onto, and obviously the big concern is then being able identity theft and everything else. And you've got millions and millions and millions of records that are suddenly appearing on individuals. Yeah, the security conscious people are concerned about the impact of what's happening and the ability to work around it. The concern, I mean, I'm a bit concerned with this, was the idea that child accounts are going to be disabled as of December the 10th. Well, which basically means YouTube Kids is no longer accessible to Australian children. That might be a good thing. The problem, and if you've ever done this on YouTube, for example, had a look at the interface with an account and without an account, it's a different level of chaotic, or different level of chaos. And the sort of ads that are then put up with content is problematic, I guess. If you've got an adult account and you're looking at YouTube through an adult account, you're going to get ads that can be adult oriented. Sports gambling ads, for example, movie trailers for MA 15 plus or R-rated movies, or other content that a child might find disturbing. Now, those sort of ads are going to appear when you're signed out of a Google account, because, well, now there's no restriction on what you can and can't see. Well, limited restriction on what you can and can't see through YouTube. And so then you've removed this protective mechanism. Kids now won't be on YouTube Kids anymore. They're going to have to come across to the grown-up YouTube and use it signed out. And they're going to be exposed to content, both posted content and also advertisement content that they weren't going to be exposed to previously. So in terms of child safety, it's latching one small gate but knocking down the fence next to it. It's counterproductive, and it's going to remove a lot of the safety mechanisms that are in place. There, exactly what I just said. The other thing, so I said, they're saying that it prevents career paths for people who produce content, people who started content when they're young and move forwards. Yeah. And the idea that they're going to know how to get around it. Like at least a third. It's going to stop the honest. And even then, I don't think it's going to stop the honest either. They'll just use it signed out. However, the government said that there'll be no exemptions and the platforms will be expected to facilitate the new restrictions. Yeah, the government making insane directions. I don't think I've ever seen Labor know what they're talking about in the tech world. I mean, well, the NBN. Their idea of the NBN was better than Turnbull's idea of the NBN. I'll give them that. Although we're now finally getting to the point that households are getting gigabit connections. but it's not nationwide. And a big part of that's fault, not just the coalition, but it's also the telco. I mean, Telstra said they didn't own the pits anymore, but there's a lot of hangover, I guess, in IT and telephony circles from Telstra, Telecom, Postmaster General. That's what they were back in the day. Yeah, it's a mess, but we're getting there slowly. The article here, though, is talking about the idea that they're going to challenge the band's legitimacy under the Constitution. And to do that, they need to find an appropriate case study, an appropriate example. And so it's not going to be easy. It's going to be expensive. It's going to go for a long time. But they're going to find they're going to wonder who the candidate under 16 is that they're going to use for this purpose. They probably haven't identified them yet, but they think, I mean, there's arguments, and I mean, these are fair arguments too, that the ban could be overturned because of its impact on its implied right to the freedom of political communication. Okay, you look at who is writing this article, the ABC, and they're taking a position of it's suppressing political speech by progressive young people. Yeah, okay, that's very much in line with what the ABC wants to say and wants you to think. And they've put forward this young climate activist as saying, well, look, she wouldn't have had access or been able to use Instagram to talk about environmental justice or to share her political views. Okay, I'm not going to talk about her in particular. If you've ever had to listen to the political views of someone who's under the age of 16, you understand why it's a good idea to ban them or to get them to shut up until they grow older and get a bit more experience and understand things a bit better. I'd hate to think how preachy a lot of these politically active under 16-year-olds podcasts and political content really is. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. Even through the ages of 18 to 21, you're very ideologically pure because you've yet to run into the real world and find out that the real world doesn't work along the lines of some perfect ideological guideline. There's compromise, there's give and take, or the model, this desirable thing you've been sold doesn't work in reality because people are people. Very few political ideologies or models account for the fact that people are people. Now, could argue that what I'm doing right now is just the same. Fair enough. Didn't say my viewpoints were any more enlightened than theirs. Just better. But no, it's a valid point though. I mean, why do I get, well, apart from the fact I'm over the age of 16, nice beard for a 16-year-old. Other than the fact I'm over the age of 16, what gives me the authority or the right to be able to do this and stop them? And so this is the sort of argument that's being put forward. And it's a valid argument. But at the same time, I really don't want to hear the political views or be forced to hear the political views of a teenager. I can respect that they have them, but it's the sort of thing that, yep, vote when you turn 18, all that sort of stuff, but I'd expect you to get a bit more experience, a lot bit more life experience before you start telling me what to do. But sharing her political views with a wide network, yeah, it's a bit easier when you get the bully pulpit of social media. And that's part of the problem too, is this individual is using it for political viewpoints. Sadly, a lot use it for, well, being teenagers. They take bullying onto the online sphere. So yeah, obviously she's checking in with her political friends and stuff like that. Well, they're the people she's involved with and active with, and of course it's going to be motivated to her when things come forward. This is going to this is going to impact my future. Okay, kid, take a deep breath. You haven't finished school yet. Okay, great to be politically aware and politically active. You've got a number of years of education yet to come, be it to further reinforce the position you already hold, or to develop some nuance, or to understand a bit more about the wider world. You've got time, all right? Take the time to learn. But, yeah. Okay. Quite honestly, this is a self-centered statement, which is she's saying that if people aren't able to access social media, they won't be thinking about that when they go to their teens and when they reach voting age. So she's advocating for being able to control the minds of children. Kind of one of the reasons why the ban's being asked for in the first place. Don't think that's going to be a win that she thinks it is. But still, I do believe it is appropriate to challenge the legislation, and that I don't know necessarily that it's a bad thing to inhibit this sort of stuff. I mean, you can't. I mean, all right, we're halfway through the article. Let me show you something at the end of the article. Okay, have your say. But there's no comments. There's no discussion. It's tell the ABC what you think, but there's no discussion. So the ABC themselves are in a position where they're prohibiting the person, i.e. me, because I'm reading the article, from engaging in political debate. I just find a way around it. I go onto my channel and talk about it. But it takes away the option to discuss things. You can't sit there and whine and complain about this under 16 ban coming down when you refuse to allow comments on your own articles. It's hypocritical, really. And so, yeah, there's different groups, and it's quite funny to see the disparate nature of the groups coming together to counter, and that's, yeah, kind of partially reassuring. So, the legislation as it stands is a poor solution to a genuine problem. Yes. Will there be a High Court challenge? More than likely. Yep, we don't have a Bill of Rights, quite clearly. And we don't have a First Amendment. Our Australia's constitutional protections and everything else, really quite interesting. It's not a bad constitution, certainly, but we don't have a Bill of Rights, we don't have a First Amendment, don't have a Second Amendment. We do have a range of amendments, but they're not structured like the US. And I think that's the sort of thing that people tend to assume, especially US people tend to assume, that a lot of the world, if they're speaking English online, they're kind of got the protections or the rights to speech that the Americans do. Nah. Some can be very, very limited. And we're constrained by you look at what's happening in the UK. Now, they're certainly leaning down on certain aspects of speech. Other nations aren't. So, yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, they're pushing the idea that it's suppressing political speech. I don't know. I mean, yep, clearly it's in the desire of, I guess, progressives to want to see this challenge, but there's many other reasons to challenge it. I don't know that's the only reason to bring the case, and I don't know that that should be the only reason or the only allowance made. Um, uh, some suggesting the challenge won't come until after the lockdown or the ban has come into force. Yeah, it's difficult. So YouTube said that there's other options they may follow as well based on the recent submission and the recent stuff. Hmm, they're at loggerheads. I mean, it's a bit like when the footage of the Ukrainian refugee who got brutally stabbed to death in the US back in August was circulating on social media and the actual media in other places. The E-Safety Commissioner, or their office, was threatening social media users for posting or reposting the imagery and footage, and were, well, lobbing threats, to which a lot of these users, being non-Australian, were laughing at them and laughing at the E-Safety Commissioner and saying, look, no, not going to happen. And, well, some people were looking at her previous work history and saying it's just an extension of what she was doing back then. And we're actually saying that you're suppressing not just speech on and discussion on what took place with the Ukrainian refugee, you're now heading towards suppressing speech on the ability to critique what it is the Safety Commission is doing. There's a line to be found. I mean, yeah, the blatant reproduction of gore in a context or an environment you don't expect to see it is confronting and probably should be avoided. But is it a requirement for one nation to force another to take it down? That raises all sorts of curly questions. Yeah. But the challenge and everything else, I mean, there's also now talk, sticking with the ban, is that various online games are going to face being part of the ban, but they're not currently part of the ban. The ban currently excludes online services that have the sole or primary purpose of enabling end users to play online games with other end users. But there's been stuff recently, well, it's always been around, but more prominently recently, about the horrible stuff that's happening inside of services like Roblox. Microsoft has implemented chat reporting and certain chat filtering inside of Minecraft, and there's various other online communications within games that have been problematic. And again, people are going to find ways around things and do things. But the question is, because the definitions under the ban are vague, it's a bit hard to say, well, what's what? What can or can't be excluded? And then it comes down to an indistinct set of things, and almost makes it a political tool, a political weapon, more than a method of protecting the community. And yeah, Lego Play, I'd not heard much about terrible things happening inside it, but it's going to be difficult to capture this. yep, Roblox is rightfully critiqued for a lack of effective moderation, but maybe they should be critiqued for far left material as well, fringe and far left material. It's not just one side of the political spectrum doing this, because then that just suggests this is being done to suppress political speech and not as a mechanism of protection. Yeah. I mean, are they going to ban Fortnite? Well, they've been playing Roblox for ages as well. Some people are saying you're banning games for an overreaction. Well, yeah, safer games, etc. I don't know. It's been difficult forever, really, to manage the internal interaction, the online chat elements, how you regulate or how you monitor and moderate online speech. You can need to have active moderators, and people still take time to react. They've got a time to see it, process it, and react. It's potentially one of those things where people are going to find a way to work around whatever ban's in place. I mean, in Minecraft, there was don't know if it's still active, but there was a world that had been developed as an online library of sorts, a digital bibliothèque of freedom. And the idea was that using various Minecraft elements, that there would be a repository of documents, books, etc., that were banned in various places around the world, and it would give users or players from those countries a means to access that material through the avenue of Minecraft. Well, that's just going to lead to Minecraft being banned in those countries. Or people in those countries who probably already had a desire to read that material probably already had access to that material. But the intent was that it was to provide a pathway for political expression of access to freedom. And, well, I mean, every nation has material they don't want shown. But the idea was there. Now, you can argue that under this sort of under 16 ban, something like that should be banned from Australian under 16s. Comes down to this idea that it's a vague system, and yeah, it will be implemented, I dare say. It's going to be an absolute mess from 10th of December onwards. It's going to be bad.